Welcome to Winning Inside, the show where we follow the journey from feeling defeated to winning. Here are your hosts, Cheddy Matthews and Michelle Wickman.
Hello, amazing people. Welcome to the Winning Inside podcast, where we discuss real issues, insights, and solutions to help you thrive in your day-to-day lives.
We know life happens and we choose to be a spectator or participant.
All I'm going to do is start by laughing because I know Michelle is excited. She can't even stop giggling because today we have a guest on our show that we have been talking about before we even had a podcast. So I'm excited. Michelle's excited. Everyone's amped up. The energy in this podcast room, virtual room, is so fired up right now. And right now we have on the Reneé Coakley. And you don't know who that is? You're going to find out. So Michelle, tell us who Reneé Coakley is.
Oh, gosh, no. Who is Renee to me? Okay.
There you go.
So in my life, I met Renee. Oh my gosh. How many years ago was that? It was almost 10 years ago, I think. It might, be coming up on 10 years in like the end of this year. And it was at a time when I had moved to Michigan and I was working at a company called Lululemon. And you hear me reference that a lot in this podcast. One, because there was a lot of growth that happened there for me personally, but two, because I met some amazing people who have continued to do amazing things in their life. And I also want to honor and respect that all humans are amazing in their own right and in their own ways. And the stories that people have continued to, their stories that they've lived and their lives that they lived in the duration since I stopped talking to them, like Renee. And it's not that we stopped. I moved back to San Diego and, she carried on with her life out in Michigan, and she's had a couple of experiences that taken her to different places too. But I want her to share that part of her life. But who is she to me? She is somebody who I connected with and respected greatly in my old job. She has always been incredibly poised, incredibly graceful, and just somebody that I just really admired a lot with how she carried herself in this world, and have admired her from afar as she carried herself through her life. And I want her to share the story with you. And I hope that you catch a glimpse of, just who she is and gather some inspiration from it.
Nice.
Renee.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I am fantastic. How are y'all doing?
We're excited. We're just glad to have you on. I mean,
I
it's
know.
just been time. It's about time. It's like,
I know.
Wow.
I'm excited
too.
I know. I feel like I'm in your living room. Like it feels like, that cozy type of feeling. I love that.
I mean, we're across the country from one another, but that's the beauty of this, right?
Yeah.
It feels like we're literally just having a chat in the same room together. Wow. I have my tea. Cheddy has his tea.
Yep, I need tea. I should have made tea.
Sorry, I should have poured some for you.
It's okay. No, I agree. This is really beautiful. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So I want you, I know you've been through a lot.
Right, a laundry list.
A laundry list in I think it's about 8 years, 7 to 8 years that, we have been apart, I guess you would say. We weren't speaking and not by like choice. It's just kind of like by life circumstances, right? And I approached you and I said, I'm so in awe of how you carry yourself, right? And how you carry yourself with grace. And I said, I don't have the kind of relationship with God and religion that you have. And that's okay. But my admiration for how you live with faith is so strong that it's like I've learned through your processes and through how you carry yourself. And I'd love for you to just share a little bit about, what happened, right? And even just what you leaned into just as you were going through these life experiences?
Absolutely. I just want to touch on too what you just said. I think that's so beautiful because I do understand that everybody's spiritual relationship is different. Some people have a belief to religion or not, and nonetheless, regardless, I love that whatever I exuded, you were able to receive that, because I think at the end of the day, when you kind of take away, maybe a lot of the religious beliefs and putting on the titles on things, and you just have the person, like that is love. That's what grace is. And that's like the foundation, that you build it off of. So instead of putting it in a box and a title, just kind of walking with that overall like beam of light and giving grace to people continuously. So I just wanted to touch on that. But to your point, it feels like it's been a long life, and I am just about to be 34. It's been a long
just a
time.
Baby.
Well, thank you. But yeah, so Michelle, shortly after, like you and I had met so many years ago, I think not to say I think, but my very first traumatic situation happened through my son's stillbirth. My son was a stillbirth when I was 36 weeks pregnant in my pregnancy, and that triggered a lot for me. I had never experienced something so traumatic. I had never had a loss like that. This was my first pregnancy. So, a lot of firsts in that instance and situation. And I was away from home. So I had moved from Michigan to Atlanta with my partner at the time, thinking I'm going to start this great new life. I was still with our fantastic company, Lululemon. So, going through the motions of life. And then one thing led to another, and it just instantly changed for me within those couple of hours. So having navigated that first traumatic situation really took me down a spiral. And the spiral was a little dark, and then it got lighter. And I really leaned into trying to just do things. It started off with trying to do things that just made me feel better and feel good about myself, because I felt so low and down and very raw and empty. And that just trickled into the way that I started to heal and care for myself, and pouring into self love, self care, realizing, oh, there are tools for help, a therapist. Let me look into that. Never had that before. Realizing what it looks like to focus and lean on community, starting to use my voice and ask for help. It was just a lot of firsts for me. So after having navigated that and started going through my healing process, life became much, much better up until 2021, I was diagnosed with triple negative stage 2 breast cancer out of nowhere. And that hit me like a bag of bricks. So just, creeping up on a year of being cancer free and just concluding that cancer journey and chapter, it has, definitely been quite the ride for sure. But I'm grateful for the tools that I had built through the trauma and loss of my son to help me navigate this diagnosis, like when I'd received it. And even just being in this space now where I help women, I help baby loss moms, moms that have experienced loss, miscarriage, stillbirth. I help women now that are newly diagnosed, survivors and thrivers, and women just trying to navigate hearing this news. And it's interesting because my traumas or my situations were also a first for a lot of people around me. A lot of people had never had someone that lost a child, or maybe lost a child that far into the pregnancy, or hadn't had someone that was diagnosed with breast cancer, or, things like that. So I'm just grateful that my healing has allowed me to now be, I guess, kind of like the go-to person when they need to talk about it or have someone close to them with those situations. And they've come to me like, hey, my friend experienced this. Do you have any suggestions? Is there anything I can do? Things like that. So that's kind of, the wave of the space that I'm in now.
That's amazing. I mean, truly, Cheddy and I talked about this offline, I want to say a couple weeks ago, or right after you and I had connected. And it was one of those things where I said, either one of those traumas could have truly taken
Taking you
somebody and
out,
sort of like, yeah, just
Yeah.
taken
taking
them
them out.
out of this space, right? And it's not to say that, one person is better than another, and there's no judgment around that, but the beauty of what and I had shared this with you too, Renee, what I had experienced is you were sharing your story in real time, right? So even while you were in the process, the throes of pain and in the process of healing, you were often sharing your story. And what I had gained from those messages was not you kind of pushing your pain out there. What I read from them and experienced from them was the love that you had. So the message that you conveyed was love. It wasn't, look at my pain. It was, there's so much love to be had here, even in loss and even in trauma. So I want to acknowledge you for being so open with your story, and even your story and your body healing now, right? And there's even like humor. You even add humor to this now as your body's healing now. And I was watching your, keep it tight, keep it right.
Yes.
And I was just like, that's Renee, that's who she is like, this is my real life. And, sharing it helps others to also feel almost unburdened, that they're not alone in some of these experiences.
Thank you for that. I'm glad this is being recorded so I can go back and replay this. I love that you say that, because one thing that I realized, I lean towards human experiences and other people. And so I want to be that for other people too. Like, I want to just make sure that even in these moments and situations, people can just feel a little more human, because these are real life, everyday things that are happening. And some people are comfortable and strong enough to share, and some people don't. And either or is totally okay. I just realized, to your point, my healing came through the sharing. Because at first, when DJ passed away, I was like, well, what do I do? Everybody knew I was pregnant. They expected me to deliver this baby. Now I'm not pregnant. I can't hide it. What do I do? And typically I would try to sweep things under the rug and not process them. Even with my partner at the time, I'm like, well, let's just try for another baby, even though we never intentionally tried for DJ. But then I'm like, that's not realistic. I actually have to process it, talk about it, be comfortable in the discomfort of, wearing my issues, hanging them up so they're there for people to see. And so I'm like, well, if it's going to be talked about, it's going to be talked about by me. And if it's going to be shared, it's going to be shared by me. And that's just how I own my power in it. And that's just what I chose to do. So the sharing helped with the healing in both situations.
Wow. I got to tell you, the way you've synthesized your triumph that came from tribulations, or, the power that you've given to people and the power you've received that came from the pain that you had to deal with, is profound. It's what we talk about in this podcast all the time, but we talk about it and you're actually doing it real time right now. And not only that, through that pain, you overcame a lot of that pain through sharing your story. And what made it so brave is you shared it in a space where you, as you said, were the first. So people were like, I'm not even aware that was a thing. I don't know anyone that's happened to, and it's happened to you, and then this has happened to you. So you have realized, and as awesome as you are, we are not exempt from life. And the only thing we can do sometimes is choose how we're going to deal with it. And that's what you've done. That's what you've done. And I just want to hear more about your story, because it just, I think you're so inspirational to others. I mean, your smile, when you came on smiling, and everyone, I had met you for 2 seconds, I'm giggling already, right? But the funny thing is, that smile came from a place like you've earned that. And I really want to, wow, you had a choice and you chose this. You chose to win. And I just keep talking, please. I want to know more about why.
I know. It's legitimately, it's like, if we could bottle that,
Sell it, make some money.
billionaires.
Woo.
I mean, the kind of like beautiful resilience that you have, right? Like your resilience and ability to continue to move forward isn't just about survival, it's about life and living and understanding that, you know, this is part of life. Like these painful, traumatic experiences are part of life. And you get to carry those forward with you instead of feeling as though they're a burden. It's this is part of my life, right? It is part of my story, just as like the beautiful, wonderful, like joyous experiences that we have are also part of our life and our stories. So the way that you do that, like Cheddy said, it's almost like it feels and appears so seamless, right? Not without hurt and not without pain. But that's why I say, like, even in your pain, you express love. And that's why I attribute your just how you carry yourself to the word grace because of that, because of how you carry both aspects of life, the joy and the pain, through with you, and your ability to share that in such a loving and caring way. And you mentioned, and Chetty just touched on it, how, you know, there's so many people around you that never had to experience this prior to you. And there is this thing called secondary trauma, right? Where you're experiencing a traumatic event yourself and they almost experience that trauma as well because of your trauma. And yet you were able to carry and hold that space so beautifully that you could even be a support to them. And you didn't do it like and look at it, and you didn't even speak of it previously as like, I have to help these people. Well, what about my pain? Right. It was literally just love. Like, there is nobody better to help women who are experiencing this than you. Like, truly, truly, I firmly believe that. And so, yes, please, Cheddy wants to hear more of your story. I'd love to hear how, you know, I know you've done many things also on your own, and I know you work for a company now, but you also have stuff that you're doing on your own. So what does that look like?
Yeah. Um, well, thank you for sharing the secondary trauma. I did not even realize that was a thing. So that is so powerful to know.
Yes.
I'm learning there, I know there's so much I can still learn from Michelle, even now, 10 years later, and she's not even my boss anymore.
Oh, I'm still learning.
Never
But
your
I
boss,
love,
girl.
I love that. I love that. Um, so through, I guess to your point in regards to the secondary trauma, that spiraled me down even more to the wellness path. After DJ passed away, and I was trying to figure out how to continue to cope, how do I restore my body? I think I really leaned into the restoration and the postpartum healing to also support me with my spiritual healing of the loss. So I went on and became a certified holistic health coach. And I just kept going. I got certified in women's hormonal health. I was almost done with my nutritional practitioner or nutritional therapy practitioner certification prior to my breast cancer diagnosis. But I just kept going. I'm like, I just want to know more. And I connected so much with just the root of overall wellness, how we take care of ourselves, and what is that like in relation to trauma. So maybe about a year to 2 years after that, I started coaching women. So I started supporting different clients, just, in that capacity of one-on-one online coaching. And it's just amazing how it really all is connected. From the trauma to the loss to our spirituality, how we take care of ourselves, our overall well-being, what we put in our bodies, what we're consuming. It just all connects itself. And so I was meeting so many women that just had high stress jobs, or they weren't happy. They were, working jobs that didn't fulfill them, living lives that they just didn't love, not knowing how to take care of themselves, wavering on and off from dieting and other different challenges and things like that. So it was really beautiful to help people restore and I guess in a sense, get back to themselves and figure out what that foundation needed to be for them, because I had been able to do it for myself. So I didn't stop there. After I was coaching for some time, and this was really a part of my healing journey when I was living in Charlotte. So after my son passed away, I had went back home to Michigan because I needed my community to love on me and help me get back together. As Michelle knows, like I went back to our old store, our old job and things like that. And at first I was like, man, it's kind of felt like I failed or something, like I'm going backwards, because here we are a year later and I'm right back where I was. But I needed to be there. I needed to go back to that personal foundation to build myself up. End up helping women, coaching them, relocating to Charlotte. And it felt like a eat, pray, love journey, but in the South. So I was just like spending so much time outside in nature. I was like a hop and a skip away from the ocean. And just the calminess, and that helped so much with restoring me. And I'm like, all right, I'm ready to tackle Atlanta again. And my grandma, she's so funny, God rest her soul, she just passed away in December. But my grandma was like, out of all the places to go back to, you want to go back to Atlanta? She was like, that's where all the trauma came from. But you don't want to consider any other place. And I was like, well, I didn't really think about that, but I had always been drawn to Atlanta. And I'm like, even though that is where a lot of my trauma took place, I just, I didn't feel like it had to define how the rest of my life could proceed. Because even though that may be lingering there, who I am when that happened isn't lingering there. And I'm like, I'm okay. I can do it. It's fine. So came back here, ended up transitioning into fertility. And even now today, I work in the fertility healthcare space. And I'm like, what a coincidence, because when I received the diagnosis, my breast cancer diagnosis, it came from my doctors, my providers at work, and they were able to really help me navigate, help me cope. But things did have to move kind of fast. So as soon as I got that diagnosis, I knew that I still desired to have future children, even though it'll be 6 years on Sunday since my son passed away. So it's been some time and I haven't tried again. But nonetheless, and then also a part of trying comes with finding a decent man. So that's a whole nother story. But nonetheless, here we are.
Guys, you're messing
for
up.
the future.
There's a time on the phone right now.
Okay.
Stop messing up. Stop messing up, guys.
That's right. That's right. I'm like, for whatever the future holds, let's just go ahead and save some of these eggs. So I ended up doing 2 rounds of fertility preservation. So I have God graced me. I have about 18 eggs stored and saved for the future if I need to use them, because we were starting chemo so quickly. And I didn't realize the chemo can mess with your fertility and change things. So that's why we went ahead and did that. And then as soon as I was done, I got right into the chemotherapy. And I did over about 25 treatments of chemo. That became like a whole different world in and of itself. I think that is the hardest part of going through a cancer diagnosis, is navigating chemotherapy. It's like that became the way that I would maybe go to the gym every week, or, go get my facials every month, or just simple things. That also became a part of my routine. I was there every Friday for at least 8 hours getting treatment. So because of the treatments, some weeks were better than others. In the beginning, they're giving you the heavier medications because they really want to be able to attack the cancer and kill it off, essentially. So I reduced my work hours to about 4 days a week. So I was working a little over 30 hours a week, which was also tough because, well, you don't get rich going through cancer. So there's financial challenges there for sure. But I had to be in a place where I just had to focus and prioritize myself. And it was really hard to do so. When you are a person that is you're used to taking care of yourself, you're used to handling business, you're used to being on the go, and then you have something happen in life that sits you down, not by choice, it is hard to be still. Yeah. So I still struggled with that in the beginning, because I felt like if I became a little lax, or if I changed my normal routine now that I had cancer, I wasn't going to be my regular self anymore. And maybe I wouldn't, still be attached to the things I love to do. I didn't want it to change me, but it did change me, because it had to, because my body needed to rest. It needed the time to heal. It needed to restore itself after all the medication, and I needed to take it easy. So I'm, grateful for the friends and community I had that really supported me in that way. I'd even had one of my girlfriends. I wanted things to still be normal. I just didn't want too much change. So one of my good girlfriends would still come over every Monday and after work, and we would do whatever. We would go play tennis, or we would just simply go walk in the park, or we would go around the corner to the Brave Stadium and walk around, or just sit outside. Like those were typically the things that we would do just to help me keep some form of normancy. So after I got through the majority of my chemotherapy in April of 2022, I had my double mastectomy surgery. And once again, back to being, on my butt, having to sit down. That was a 8-week recovery, and that was very tough. They can kind of prepare you to an extent, but you just don't really know what to expect until you end up going through it. And to, not be able to really use my arms. I couldn't lift my arms above my shoulders, like just trying to use my body, my lower half, to help me get out the bed and scoot out the bed, and having these drains in my body, and then these tissue expanders underneath my muscles and my skin. And it was just really, really rough. But nonetheless, I'm like, if I'm going to feel like I'm in this rough space, how can I still feel like I'm owning a part of it and I can find peace in it? And that's something that I've always strived to do, still finding peace in the chaos and still finding some form of peace in the things that I can't control. So I know for me, like, I couldn't leave the house. I wasn't driving. But I love being outside. And that's why I moved to Atlanta. I love the sunshine. I love the warm weather. It's just so beautiful. So I would get up out my little recliner chair because I couldn't sleep in a regular bed. And I would just make my way outside to the porch and just sit outside and sit in the sun and soak it up and then come back in the house. And I'm like, if that's the little bit of calmness I can get, I'll take it. So end up, going through my 8 weeks of healing from the mastectomy. And then I had to do radiation. I'm just like, we're checking off all the boxes at this point. And radiation was tedious because you have to go every single day. So I did 25 rounds of radiation every day at 7 a.m. And after my 25 treatments, I was able to relax and then have a little bit of downtime between everything. And then I think shortly after, maybe a month after radiation, I had to go back and finish the rest of chemotherapy. And the second tail of chemotherapy was considered like the maintenance round. So luckily, after my double mastectomy, that's when they did my pathology report to determine that the cancer was gone 100%. It was actually gone before they had even did my surgery. But, we wanted to eliminate any possibilities of reoccurrence. So that's why I went ahead and opted for the bilateral mastectomy and just continued on with everything. So fast forward, we're now at the maintenance rounds of chemo. So instead of me being there every week, I go once every 3 weeks. I had to finish, I think, like 6 rounds of that. And then now here we are, 2 weeks post-op. I got my new titties. So I have my new breast implants. Sorry, Cheddy. I have my new breast implants. And with that surgery came the implants and liposuction. So it's interesting when a woman is at the phase of after the mastectomy and she's at the next step of the revision, we have 2 options. We can either do, it's called a deep flap, where it's a tummy tuck. It's much more invasive. But if someone doesn't want the implants in their body, if they have enough fat in their body, then breasts can be made from their fat. But I knew that I still wanted children in the future and things like that. And I'm like, that's a bit more of an aggressive process. So I opted out for that. And I said, well, I'm okay with getting the implants. And then, she just took a little bit of fat from my body to help with the naturalness and creating tissue that's kind of non-existent to just make things a little more comfortable. So that was about 2 weeks ago now. So Here we are, to say the least. Bunch of surgeries, cancer-free, and just navigating life.
I'm going to see if I get this right, because I feel like I'm missing some math here. Correct me if I'm wrong. You said 25 rounds of chemo, mastectomy, 25 rounds of radiation, and then the restorative surgery. That's a whole lot of a whole lot in a short amount of time.
It is. It is a whole lot. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
.com.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
From the end of September 28th, I was diagnosed of 2021 up until I guess today. So yeah, 2023.
Yeah, nonstop.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, because right when you get diagnosed, is that when you started down the path of harvesting the eggs? Your eggs,
yes,
is that right?
Correct.
Which that takes time in and of itself as well.
It does.
And that's kind of a no joke process too. Like,
yeah, you're right. Because I started cycling, I think right after my diagnosis. So I'd say probably the beginning of October, and we did a double stem. So meaning that we did 2 rounds of that for the fertility preservation. So between that October, I'd say mid-November is when I started chemo. So yes, yep, You're right.
That happened really fast.
Yeah, it was very quick, very quick.
Yeah.
I have one question for you. Oh no, Michelle, go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
Okay. You were talking earlier about at some point in your life when you went back home, you felt like a failure. And I was like, I just wanted to ask you a question. I said, let me write it down so I don't ask you and interrupt your flow. But everything that you said makes you an overcomer. Every word I have on my page is like overcome, grace, poise, selflessness, desire, win, leadership, and I'm like, this is what I'm seeing on you. The people that you're sharing with are probably seeing the same thing, but yet internally you saw something else. You said you felt like a failure. If you don't mind, would you kind of articulate what that meant to you?
Yeah. So it felt like I was backtracking, and it felt like I was behind, because personally, I'm a goal setter. I like to be able to check off my boxes. I am, for reference, an Enneagram 1, I guess you could say type A. So it's like we like things to be very aligned, very to the T. And when we're going right and you go left, we don't always know how to go left. So in that situation, I'm like, oh man, I planned for this. I thought that this was going to be, this is my first time living somewhere else, and this was going to be it. This was, I envisioned it being one way to experience it a certain way. And when it felt like I hit the rewind button, I'm like, oh, everyone's maybe passed me by or has already gone off ahead of me. And now I'm back at square one. And I don't know how to process being back at square one.
Yeah.
Square one and without a baby. I'm just like, because I had other friends that were pregnant around the same time as me, as Michelle probably recalls, that we had worked together. And, they didn't have these issues or complications, thank God.
Yeah.
But yeah. And cancer, Cheddy made me feel the same way too. When I had that diagnosis and the doctor was kind of giving me, a breakdown of, okay, well, no children for the next 2 years because we got to focus on this, and you need to take it easy and just be a little bit slower. Yeah, probably reduce your hours at work. I'm just like, because one, for me to be in my 30s, society is already telling me I should be married, I should have children, I should have the white picket fence and the big house, and I should be making at least 6 figures. And I didn't check off any of those boxes. So to tell me now that I don't have those things and now I have breast cancer, great. I feel like I'm even further behind. But it's so crazy because what felt like a setback, and this is where my faith comes into place, what felt like a setback, I had to stand on the foundation of what I knew God said to be true. What I already knew and believed in, and how I knew I was healed, how I knew I was more than a conqueror, that I was going to be okay. And I had to own that attitude, because if I didn't own that attitude throughout that whole entire journey, I could have succumbed to the situation and let cancer just completely take over. But I'm like, no, I may not have now what I want or what I desire, but I'm a visionary and it's going to happen. Everything I have ever wanted has come to pass, but it has never been in my timing. It has always been in God's timing. And it is going to be okay. And now I can say a year, I literally just posted about this the other day. Here we are, was a little over a year later now. I have an amazing job. I have tripled my income. I have paid off debts. I have been able to check all these boxes that I always wanted to do, which is why I moved here in the first place. But I say all that to be encouraging to other people to simply say, you are always on time. And what you think you should have at a specific time may not always align with how God is going to do things, but just having that faith and that belief that it's still going to happen, it is. So what set me back a year ago has actually propelled me even further today. And I am in the best position today, even better than I was a year ago.
Wow.
And healed.
Wow. Love it.
Right?
Love it.
Done.
Wow.
Got my mic.
Mike.
You know,
Church is out. We can head to brunch.
Yeah, that's it. I'm ready to eat. Let's go.
Let's
I
go.
love this. I love it. Oh my gosh. Wow. I tell you, you dropped so many gems. I was writing them down, trying to capture them. I'm going to capture that one. And it was like, I have a whole page full of notes right now. I have no more space on the page to write more stuff down. So all I know is, Michelle, I'm stealing your friend. She's getting stolen. So we're family now.
I know. No, yeah. You are welcome to her because that's what she's all about. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
my gosh.
that's
Yeah.
what she's.
Wow.
She is the living, breathing, just embodiment of grace and, resilience and healing and love. Like, and she is ready to share that.
Well, what blows my mind, Michelle and Renee, I'll speak to both of you, is the fact that I have known you for less than 1 hour, right? Because we've been on this thing for less than an hour, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I already love you. All I can think of is, how are you impacting the people that need you in your world? You don't come to play. I mean, you go into a place and you change lives. I can tell that just by this, just by my whole page of green notes in my pen. You change lives. And I just get the feeling that people are going to want to say, who are you? I have a story. I'd love to hear. Life happens to everybody. And your journey, as hard as it was, as impossible as it was, you came out on the other side. If that is not a quintessential winning inside story, I don't know what this podcast is about. And curiously speaking, how can people like me get in contact with people like you? Or you, forget people like you. How can we get in contact with you, Reneé? Reneé Coakley, how do I find you?
Yes, I love that. Well, I'm very active. I do a lot of inspiring over on Instagram. So my stories are always the party. But I'm Hey Reneé Ashley on Instagram. I'm very easy to find there. And essentially, kind of coming off of having supported women through the form of health coaching as a holistic health coach, I'm now kind of transitioning more into supporting breast cancer survivors and newly diagnosed women. But I'm realizing it's really just trauma support in general. So I've launched a company that I haven't shared yet, but I'll be sharing more details soon. I'm really excited. That's really going to be centered around catering to that woman, because I think whether you're someone that has had breast cancer or not, when you go through something hard and traumatic that changes your life, there's different phases of that trauma that you're navigating, and it kind of like sheds old skin and creates this whole new person. And you want to rebuild your confidence. You want to learn who you are now. How do you navigate things? How do you ask for what you need? Just having a space of feeling safe and comfortable and supported. And it all ties together with your wellness, how you nurture your body, nourish your body. How do you take care of yourself? How do you start to live that more so quote unquote toxic free lifestyle? And that doesn't have to just be food. So it can be friendships. It can be so many other things, but just like this seed that's blossoming. I think any trauma survivor, no matter what it is a seed that is a person that's been a seed that's blossomed, and it's a new season for us all. So I'm creating this beautiful, unique space that'll be able to support people in that capacity. But Hey Reneé Ashley on Instagram is where you can find me.
I found you.
Oh my
I
God.
found you.
I know.
Yay.
I know. It just best. I can't even. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. I've got my inspiration for the month. Thank you so much.
I love it.
Just
I
kidding.
love it.
You know, you're not getting rid of me for another 8 years.
I know. I don't plan on it. I don't plan. I'm going to be flying to you this year. So
That's right.
Okay,
Come on out.
I'm
Cheddy's
coming
out
too.
too,
Plus one.
so-
Plus one. I'm plus
yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's a party. It's a party.
Oh my gosh. I love it. Well, I look forward to it. And thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. And I look forward to the growth of your business and the launch of your business. Would be happy to help promote that as well.
Yes.
And if you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe, follow, share, and most importantly, use whatever adds value to your amazing life.
Remember, even if life puts barriers in our way, we are still moving forward with Renee. Sign in for a new episode of Winning Inside.
Thank you for listening to Winning Inside with Cheddy Matthews and Michelle Wickman. If you enjoyed today's show, please make sure to click the follow button, rate and review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can connect with Cheddy and Michelle at winninginside.io. Keep listening. Another episode is coming soon.